Then you have to go through and so then I started formatting it. Now I'm not done with that.
Oh, yeah. It's the pseudocode and the graphic file. Yeah. I definitely know. Two little tricky, both of them they have one little tricky thing that trips up. And well, you might be a programmer or a PR company, so it's like, I think they're trying to trick me here. That's him, whatever he goes, oh no, no. He's like, you keep killing me. I won't tell you. Each one has a little trick. And one of them, the trick. Yeah, if the trick is both, the other one has an added trick. The trick you got. Or you guys are you sure?
I'm just gonna go with
Guys, go ahead and join the Zoom session because I'm having to use a waiting room now. So I'd like for everybody to get in there all together. Today. Ooh. Should be letting a bunch of people in, see how it works. They said there was I guess there was a Zoom hacker last week. Yeah. Some OTC class, and I figure it must have been one of the health science ones because, you know, those health science people freak out about anything out of the ordinary. I would have thought it was funny, but that's not.
That's who I want to be on my grow up, known as the Zoom hacker.
So I don't know what kind of hack it was, but they decided that they had to change it to where we all have to have waiting rooms and admit you in. So you guys watch the Discord for me in case someone is at home trying to get in and I'm not seeing it, because that could happen. I'm going to try to do our attendance here. I'll have it up on the screen so that you can help me. It'll take me just a second to get our people that are at home. Oops, I'm in December. Okay, let's see. I think I'm finally ready here. We've got all three of them. You two and Amanda. Boy, that third row. We've got some people missing. Let's see who I've got. Alex said he was going to be at home. Some of you guys, hopefully we won't be too affected. Alex, I don't see you. Okay, if you guys are at home, I know you're not at home today, but if you are ever at home and you're watching, you know, make sure to hop in and say, I'm not absent, I'm here on the Zoom session. Okay, so looking at this, I'm going to count Zach, break, absent. Is that correct? None of you are he. And Thomas. Are you Thomas? Okay.
Somebody on the Zoom chat said Zach is here, at least he's trying to join.
Trying to join. Okay. And that would be Zach Hodo. Let me try that. Off-site. Okay. Okay, Thomas, who's beside you? Who's beside you? Which Zach are you? Break? Last name? Thank you. And beside you? Okay. So none of you three is Jessica. I'm kidding you. Jessica is at home. But I don't see her on. Maybe that might be her. We're saying that's her. Okay, and Jesse Whitaker, not here. Get this all figured out. Quite a mess. Just like what you guys have to deal with, trying to figure out what we're doing in class. Okay, we got Zach. I think I've got everybody. I'm going to save it.
Mine's red.
You're what?
Mine is still red.
Who are you?
James.
You're this James? That's you? And so,
Jesse, what if there's she's in chat right now?
I see him. Thank you. Okay, so are you Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Elijah that's missing. Try to get the right way.
Well, Elijah is on, I see him on Zoom right now.
Do you see him on Zoom? Well, I see him on Zoom. So you guys can see what a huge mess this is. If we ever want to have class, we need to figure out a better way. All righty. Anybody who's going to be on Zoom needs to send me an email before class. All of you all on Zoom need to send me an email. I did have some from a few. And I don't care if you've had this arrangement for 6 months, you send me an email before class. Because every day is a new day and I've got to take new attendance. So let's try to keep it where we don't lose so much time. All right, I think you guys helped. I think we might have it. We'll see. I'm going to try to share my screen. Thank you so much for all your help. All right. And I know it's hard for us when we just come once a week. And I'm trying to not think that I told you guys something that I told the other class. It would almost be easier if you were the only 120 class I had, because then I'd remember for sure that I hadn't told you stuff. So, you know, if I'm saying that I told you something and you guys are all in agreement, you have my permission to yell at me and say, no, you didn't tell us. I'll say, okay, I'll tell you about it now. First of all, this is our 4th week. This is the beginning of our 4th week. So this is our 1st quarter. So after this week is over, we'll be done with our 1st quarter of class. And gone really fast with this meeting once a week. You guys have done a great job. I think everybody's been pretty good at getting on Discord, and it has been kind of scattered. We've had some people that have come every time, and then we've had some people that have been in and out with all of the different problems that we've had. We have had some cases in our class, in case you weren't aware, and so I haven't had very many classes that have had cases. So the cases that we have been people that had never made it to class, which is good for us, right? But they're being out there in Zoom land, so we're like, thanks you guys for just doing Zoom, because that's what we want. But in the meantime, well, you guys have just done a great job. Don't forget that we have to keep up our defenses. Everybody's got their beautiful masks on. My husband and I bought some new ones over the weekend, you know, when I ordered some of the little metal clippies for the nose thing, since I have a lot of movement and so much talking and stuff. So do that, whatever you need to do to kind of keep things going. I know we were all hoping that we wouldn't have to do this kind of stuff for very long, that's for sure. It seems to keep going. So just don't forget, everybody was doing really good to it, grabbing all of the stuff to clean when you came in. Don't forget to clean off your desks when we leave, to sanitize. It's our responsibility. And sometimes I'll be doing something else, and I'm not a good mom type, hey, don't forget to clean. That was never my thing. So don't forget to clean, because we all want to be responsible and make sure that it's all clean for the next people. Oh, yay. Doing so good. I really think that you guys are doing a great job at trying to keep up with what's going on and helping each other. And there's someone wanting to get in. All right. So let's see if we can figure out where we are. Last week, when we did week 3, let me set myself as a student, so it'll look like yours. I just feel like asking you guys, how is it from your end? From my end, all the students this semester have just been so good. Everybody's been super sweet, and all of a sudden this week I've just been getting nasty emails. So I don't know if that's happening for you guys. I hope you're not getting nasty emails from your teachers. Good. Good. Yeah, people start getting upset and they start sending out nasty grams. That's all right. We're used to it. So in our lesson 3, we left last week saying that you guys were going to look at getting Python installed and doing that chapter 1. Did that go okay? Were you able to get it installed, found it, got it, went through that book okay? The textbook didn't do too much in that first section. I like being in class and showing people how to use Python for that first time because I get that good feedback. So I was kind of hesitant about giving you guys that assignment, but if I didn't, we'd never get anywhere. So we'll try to do as much as we can together because I think we all get good feedback from that. But anytime I give you an assignment like that and you're on your own, just yell if you're having trouble because you're probably not the only one. If something seems confusing to you, it probably is confusing to others too. So just hop into Discord and yell about it. Today we're going to work on these assignments that were outstanding, but we have to kind of get ready to do that. So we left off last week where our textbook was going to start talking about flowcharts. We've talked about different design tools and how we can get ourselves in the mindset to write our program to really quickly develop our code. And one of the tools that we can use is a flowchart. You guys have probably seen a million flowcharts over your life because they work really good for describing some sort of process or flow. So we've seen pseudocode as a way to describe an algorithm, to document it. We figured out the right steps to take to solve this problem. We're going to document those steps as an algorithm in our pseudocode. But a flowchart could be a really good way to document our algorithm too. And it's more visual, so we can share this maybe with other people even a little bit better than pseudocode. So it's just another option that we have. Here's a flowchart, and I just wanted to show you this one because it's a really good example of a flowchart. One thing that I like about it is that it has a good start and stop. Those are called terminators. So anything that's at the begin and the end is a terminator that shows an end point. And that's really helpful to us when we're looking at a flowchart because we can assume that it starts up here and ends down here. But when we do that, we are assuming, right? And we all know what assuming does, it's bad. So we like to have everything all clear. Now looking at this flowchart, what is it doing? First of all, it's got a process. It says in its process box, we're going to check the weather channel. When we check the weather channel, then we're going to make a decision. And this flowchart uses the right symbols. So we have the right symbol for a terminator, for our start and stop. We have the right symbol for a process. We just use a rectangle. And we have the right symbol for a decision. Anytime we want to make a decision in a flowchart, we use the decision diamonds. And the reason we use the diamond symbol is because it has different exit points. And we need that if we're making a decision. So if we're making a decision, we're going to have like a yes path and a no path coming off that decision diamond. Or we might have like a true and a false. But because we have multiple paths we could take based on our decision, we use the diamond. And that just makes it nice and clear. Now in this flowchart, our decision is, did they predict rain? If so, we're going to use this process and just stay at home. We'll follow our path and be done with our flowchart. But if there is no rain predicted, then we can do a different action and instead play golf or go swim or something fun. And then we can follow that down to the end of our flowchart. So notice that our decision structure shows us both paths, both logic paths of which way we would go. We can see too that our lines are showing us how to move. One other thing that this flowchart has is a comment. So right here, this annotation is a nice comment about the flowchart. Sometimes it's easy to leave those kinds of things out, but they can be helpful. So that flowchart follows the rules. It does a good job. It would get a good grade, right? What about this flowchart? It doesn't follow the rules as well, does it? First of all, it has no termination point, so no begin and end. So I'm going to assume, probably rightly so, that it starts up here at the beginning, but I don't get that nice warm feeling that I know absolutely for sure. So this one shows us a loop. So it's kind of mean. It says the first thing we do in this flow chart is make a decision. And the decision is, do you have homework? And if you say no, it says, oh, you're probably lying, and it shoots you right back to the same place anyways. So that's kind of an unnecessary decision, isn't it? And our flow chart can show us that right away, that we maybe don't even need to have that logic in here because it's really not doing anything. Then our next decision is really meaningful. It says, is your homework due in less than 12 hours? If it is, then start working. So they've used the wrong symbol here because instead of using a process symbol that says start working and then move on to the next step of ending the flow chart, we have start working kind of in this end symbol, so it's not right. All right, so students like to be stressed when they're doing work. I don't know why. That's why I picked this flow chart, right? But I've heard so many students over the years say, I do my best work when I'm stressed. And unfortunately, a lot of students wait until the last minute to do their homework so that they can put themselves in that great situation. So that's what this flow chart is about. It says, is it due in less than 12 hours? No? Well, then you have time to watch TV, play games, check social media, and then you can come back and check again. So this flow chart shows a loop, some repetition, where I'm just going to keep doing the same process over and over and over until I finally get a different answer from my decision, and that's going to send me off in another direction. So my flow chart can really easily show decision paths, what kind of logic I'm going to use to follow a decision, and it can also show me repeated code kind of paths that I'm going to do something over and over again. Now this flow chart, if you notice, that line and the arrowhead are really important to show this looping structure. Because if we didn't have the arrows, we might assume the right kind of loop, or we might not. We might assume something different. So all of that stuff really helps a lot. Here's a messy one. You can see it. There really isn't any real reason to try to read it or anything, because you can tell just from looking at it, it's not going to help you in any way, right? So this flow chart uses the wrong symbols for things. It has a question up here at the very top without a decision diamond. So it starts off with a decision with only one response, no matter what. So all in all, it doesn't do anything to help document any sort of solution at all. So we have to follow those specific standards for flowcharts to get things to really be helpful. Here's one. Here's standards. Can you see all that? This wiring is from India. And at the time these pictures were taken, there were no cabling standards for the country. So if somebody wanted to hook up cable TV, I don't know what they do. It would be bad. It would be bad, right? And apparently there are, you know, like attempts to get free electricity and things like that that happen too that really are, I guess, are not good. But so I show you this cable because it's like, have you ever seen anything like that? This guy's back here going, yes, yes. Where have you been?
KY3.
Oh, so inside, not outside. So you can find it. And I've seen some that are pretty bad that I wouldn't want to mess with. But I have this overwhelming desire to just rip it all out and start organizing everything. So it probably would not go well here because they'd probably have a few people without power for a while. But this is why standards matter. So if I am like, why are they so picky about flowcharts? I'm just drawing a picture to represent this activity. This is what happens. If we don't follow the rules, and we don't make rules, we just kind of do things carry. Standards are important. And so if we mess up a flowchart, I don't think it's going to end up like something like that right away. But it's the same idea that we've just got to make sure that we're doing things in the recommended way so that we're passing as much information as we possibly can. There's some more pictures here. Let's see. That one is just scary, and the thoughts that the traffic and stuff is going right under it. So some of them look a little bit like a ship, a sailboat. So I don't know if it's all better now. I have no idea. They're kind of old pictures. Okay, so flowcharts. What symbols we have are in our textbook. And you don't have to go find your textbook and open it to this spot. I just wanted to show you that they are in here. There are several other flowcharting symbols that are used besides these main ones. But these are the main ones that our textbook is concerned with. These are the main ones that you might see on a programming certification exam, something like that, asking you what symbol is used for a decision. So we have our terminator, that was that oval, the begin and end. We have the process rectangle, that is just usually one thing. We only want one thing in each rectangle. We might have to have, 3 or 4 rectangles to really get our point across, but we want them one item, one process box. Input and output, like if we're going to prompt a user for some data, we would use this parallelogram to indicate that we were going to ask for input or display output. And our decision diamonds, and this little circle is a connector. So if we ran out of space on a piece of paper at the bottom, we could use a connector to connect it back up at the top. You'll see the tools that we use, we don't have to worry too much about those kinds of things. So that is in your textbook, and that's what we needed to know for flowcharts. So let's get our assignments going. I'm going to jump in this online version of the book to those programming problems that we have assigned. And they're at the very end of chapter 3. So I have found with this online version, if I go to chapter 4 and then back up a page, I get to them. A little different than using the paper copy. Okay, so our assignments, we have 2 of them. And I'm going to take the second one, the one that says programming project number 4, and I'm going to make it to where it doesn't apply to your grade. So it's still going to be out there as an assignment. If you want to work on it or you want to just do part of it, you can. If you want to ignore it, you can. Because today in our class, in our lab time, we're only going to have time to do one of these when we get to it. So that's all right. 2 is extra practice, but 1 is enough. So what do we need to do? Well, you're going to look at the textbook, and this is on page 177, but I'll leave it up here on the screen too. And the assignment that you have is this number 2. So let's do number 1 together so that you can see what we need to do. First of all, we have these programming projects at the end of our textbook, at the end of each chapter, and they're the colored pages, so they're easy to find on the side of your book. And for number 1, we'll do this one as an example. They say you need to prompt for and input a saleswoman's sales for the month in dollars, and her commission rate is a percentage. Output her commission for that month. You'll need to convert the percentage to a decimal. You'll need the following variables: sales amount, commission rate, and commission earned. You will need the following formula: commission earned equals sales amount times the commission rate divided by 100. So I want to start with the IPO chart that we looked at last week. So our people at home will be able to see this as well. I'll take a picture of it when we're done, and we'll try to post it to Discord. But if I do it on Word or something, we'll just never get it done because it's just that annoying. So if you remember, an IPO chart stands for input, process, and output. And it was one that was not very fancy, but it gave us our at-a-glance information. So I'm going to create my 3 columns. of my input, process, and output. I'll turn on this camera. See if I can figure out how. Okay, so I've got the camera going. I don't think it's going to show the board with the glare anyways, but we can try it. So what kind of data do we need as input to this program?
Sales amount, commission rate.
Sales amount, commission rate. So trust yourself, nothing magic, like it says on there. And then what kind of output do they say they'd like to see? The commission earned. Perfect. So that's our input, and here's our output. And then right in here, they gave us our processing, right? Our calculation. So my calculation is going to be commission earned equals sales amount times our commission rate. These words are so long. Divided by, whoops. That was right. I didn't trust myself. Divided by 100. Because we're just going to have them enter a whole number, and then we're going to make it a percentage by dividing it by 100. So not the neatest writing in the world, but for our application that we're going to create, this IPO chart should be everything that we need, right? We've got our inputs, our calculations, and our output. So it just helps me kind of get everything all on one page. So the first thing our textbook showed us is pseudocode. So let's make our pseudocode for this application. Still hard to get. So for our pseudocode, I'm going to use Notepad++. And the reason we're going to use it is because if we use Word, Word is just going to try to be auto-correcting things for us and indenting, and it's going to just make it really hard for us to create our pseudocode. Word does not work well for any sort of coding, and even pseudocode, it doesn't work super well. So right here with Notepad++, it's just a little application that's kind of an enhanced notepad. And the biggest enhancement is it lets me have multiple files open at once. So I'm going to have a tab here for every file that I have open. Right now, I just have this one file that's empty. So let's go ahead and save it. I'm going to save mine to my OneDrive. I have a CIS120 folder, and then I have a Fall 20 folder. For us. And then I'm going to give this pseudocode a meaningful file name like Chapter 3 Commission Pseudo. So I'd like to put a little bit of numbering in the names to know, where it came from. But also like a little bit of verbiage. So we could say, you know, project one, but then we wouldn't remember that it was that commission earned one. And sometimes we need to find an example. And I'm going to really encourage you guys to do that. Find examples to work from, because that's going to give us the best way to move forward. In Notepad++, you can tell I'm zoomed in. Control scroll will work to zoom in for you. And I'm going to start out with a couple comments. And I'm going to use 2 slashes to indicate a comment, because our textbook says that most programming languages like 2 slashes as comments. And we're going to say that this is our chapter 3 salesperson commission. And I want you to put your name. And I know you know who you are, but we'd like that information for posterity. And it helps me, you wouldn't believe, when I'm grading, when I see your name on your code, it's so much easier for me to put in a score, because you wouldn't believe how much time sometimes I'll use to make sure that I've got the right person, because I'm looking at a lot of different places. So it's nice when I see that name. Okay, so I've also said what day I started coding this on. Again, that might be something that isn't super meaningful, but if I get pulled away from this and I get back to it 3 months later, that's going to be really helpful to me to remember, oh my goodness, it's been 3 months since I last looked at this. I might need to review a little bit what was going on here before I get started. And that's good. I'm going to go ahead then and do 2 more slashes just as an empty line. And I want to start out with declaring our variables. Now in our textbook, they give us our variables that we need. They say we need sales amount, commission rate, and commission earned. So I'm going to use that declare statement to set them up. Will they all be the same data type? Do we want these to be numbers? No numbers? What kind of numbers? Do they need decimal places? Some do. Float for all of them?
No.
No? Which ones?
Sales amount.
Sales amount needs to be float. And commission earned? So I'll say those are both float. And then let's declare our commission rate is an integer. Since we're dividing it by 100, we're assuming it's just going to be an integer. So that's to get all our variables set up that they said that we were going to need.
Can you scroll over so I can see past the commission earned?
In a minute.
Okay,
You know what it says? It says as float.
as float, okay.
You are so good. All right, so what do we need to do next now? We've got our variables. We know that we want to do things in a modular fashion. Because I could just start here and say, oh, I want a prompt for the sales amount. No, I want things in modules. And we decided that it was always good for us to have an input module with our beginning programs. Since we don't have a lot of functionality, we'll have an input module, a module to do our calculations, and then an output. And we're going to want a main module. I'm putting too much on this one board. We're going to want a main module that controls it all to call all them. Now I can redo it. I could have redone it before. So let's set up our modules. I could do it a bunch of different ways. I could go ahead and start statements to declare each of my modules in my pseudocode, or I can just declare them as we get to them. I kind of like to declare them as we get to them, but it's fine if you want to set them all up beforehand. So let's start with our input module. I'm going to use that keyword module and then the name of my module, and I'm going to make this one input mod. All of the lines of code then within my module, I'm going to indent. And I'm just going to indent them so that it's easier to see what goes with this module, right? So in our input module, the first thing we want to do is write out that prompt asking for that sales amount. So let's write, please enter the sales amount. And then when we input that, what variable did we want to use to save that? Exactly. Now, this is the reason why, again, I wanted you to use Notepad++. You see how it's doing some intelligent editing for us? And as it's recognizing what I'm typing, it's dropping down these options saying, I've seen you type that already. Would you like to drop one of these items into your code? So I don't have to keep typing all that stuff. So I want sales amount. It's the item that's highlighted here. So I can just press enter and Notepad++ will drop that code into my file for me. I could also press some other magic keys like tab. So let's try some. All right. So we got to use our tools and figure out how to do this pseudocode. Okay, the next thing I want to write out another prompt for our commission rate. What is the commission rate? And then what are we going to use as a variable to save that? Commission rate, exactly. And again, now I'm going to use the down arrow to get to commission rate in that drop down. And then I'm going to press tab to drop it into my code or enter. Whichever. Do you see how that's working? Because it can save you a lot of time. We won't use Notepad++ forever, but a lot of the tools work the same way. Okay, is that the end of our input module? I think it is. We didn't need any other input data, just these two items. So we should have both of those taken care of now. Are you guys okay online? I just am forgetting about you terribly.
I'm good.
Yay! That speaker is just right at my elbow. I seem scared, I'm sorry. Okay, so next, let's do our calculation module.
Should we have the call modules in first on the main module?
Do it?
Call.
We could, because that would be more logical for our brains, wouldn't it? And actually with our pseudocode, it doesn't matter either way what order we put it in. And I think we work more with our main module first, but I'm actually waiting till the end because that's how Python makes us do it. So there's
Call
a
statements at the end.
And the reason being, Python is interpreted. So when you call a module, it has to have already seen it. So as it's reading through, like module 1, module 2, you can't call module 1 until it's already passed through it. That makes sense. It's reading the file. So our main has to come last, which is a really hard thing. I agree. So that's why I haven't done it. You are absolutely right. Okay, let's do our calculations module. We have this one formula that we need. We said we were going to take our commission earned. Ooh, I need that keyword set, don't I? You see how easy that is to leave out. And it's also really easy to put that keyword in when we start doing our Python code. And it's only a pseudocode thing. So that little word set, our textbook really emphasizes it, and it's really important for us to think that in our brain, but we won't have that in our actual Python code. So I'm going to say, let's set commission earned equal to our sales amount times, and here I'm going to have to go way over. Our commission rate divided by 100. So for this application, that is the only processing that we have to do. We could call this module processing if we wanted to. But we're all done. So the only other thing we need to do then is our output. How are we going to spit this stuff out for our users? So let's do that module. And we're going to write a message, the commission earned is, and I'm going to leave a space within my string because I would want that space to show up in the output. And then I'm going to use concatenation. And concatenation is that process where I can say I want you to use this string and then add in more stuff that's going to be printed out. So we want to print out the commission earned is, and then the value of our commission earned variable. And that should be the end. So we need our main. I'll go ahead and create module main. And our main module needs to call each of these others. So call our input module, call our calculation module, and call our output module. So in our pseudocode, we could have this made, we could have these modules declared in any order. It doesn't matter as long as we can find them. But that makes it hard for us to find them, right? So it's nice to have them in some sort of logical order to us. One of the companies I used to work for put a number prefix at the beginning of every module name. It was just a requirement, one of our standards. And then you had to have your modules in that order in your code. Love that. That was super easy to find. I think that everybody should do that. Unfortunately, the whole world didn't accept that as a standard, but it works really well. So anything we can do like that to clarify and find our code is going to make it easier. So in general, we can have them in any order, but different programming languages are going to have different requirements. I agree that I would like to see my main module up at the top, because that's what's starting off the whole thing. Taking everything off, seeing it down here at the bottom is kind of illogical. And like I said, I did it that way because that's the way Python is going to make us do it. And I told you a week or two ago, we're not supposed to do our pseudocode like a certain language, that we're supposed to make it language independent. And look, here I am trying to make it like Python so that you'll be aware that it's that way, breaking those rules. Okay, let's save it. Does it need anything else? It is really done. So this pseudocode now, we'll use it in a week or two to actually create a Python program that does this so that you can see how similar our pseudocode is to Python. And it will make it pretty easy for us to translate one to the other. But we need to make a flowchart first before we can do that. There are lots and lots of tools we could use to make flowcharts. We could use Word and drive ourselves crazy, but we could insert symbols and eventually create a flowchart. We could use Visio, which is a Microsoft product that is actually for drawing and for technical drawings like that. There are lots of cloud-based tools for drawing things. We could just draw it by hand. We also have this little tool that came with our textbook. So I like to use it because it's got instructions for it in the textbook. You guys don't have to go off looking a million other places. So let's find it. It's called Raptor. So when you're looking at your textbook, let me show you where this is before we get started with it. Those of you at home, can you search for install Raptor and see if you can get it installed real quick? Because it is a really small program and you should be able to get it. In your textbook, if I look at the chapter 3 table of contents, at the very end, it has this section running with Raptor. This section shows you step by step how to use the Raptor program. So if you forget or you want a little bit more input, when you get home, you can find it in your book. We'll only use it for this chapter, just so that you get a little bit of experience and exposure to flowcharts. But it's always out here. So in our Prelude to Programming book, there's always this section at the end of the chapter. Some people really like Raptor because it's really simple and it helps you get the concepts down of what's going on. So if you like it, you can continue to use it as much as you want to help you clarify ideas. But we're just going to use it for this one time. Okay. So I've got it open. Let me get rid of some of this other junk. When Raptor starts out, I have a piece of paper open because that's how I draw a flowchart. Piece of paper, and I have my beginning and end termination symbols. Over here on the side, I just have a few other flowcharting symbols that I can use to drag onto my piece of paper. My flowchart, the thing that's kind of neat about Raptor is I can actually run my flowchart. So when we're looking at pseudocode, all we can do is look at it and say, yep, looks right. But with Raptor, we can actually execute our flowchart so we can make sure that we don't have any sort of logic errors. So that's kind of helpful. Let's start out using just an output symbol. So looking at my symbols here, I'm going to grab the output and I can just drag it and drop it between the start and the end. If I decide I don't want it, I can highlight it and delete it with the delete key. I saw yesterday someone clicked on output and then clicked over here. I was always dragging and dropping, but you can also just click. So you can do it either way. Now the output symbol is the parallelogram, just like we saw in our flowcharting symbols. But this parallelogram has an arrow that's pointing out. That shows us it's an output. I'm going to double click on it. Oops, it's going to make me save. I want to save to my same folder. And I'll name this one Chapter 3 Commission and Flowchart. And of course, those will have different icons in Explorer, but I just like that file name having the description of what it is in it. So I'm back to where I was. I've got my file saved. I'm going to double click on this output symbol. And what I see here from Raptor is this big text box. And whatever I type in here is what Raptor will try to output. But I have to use programming syntax. So if I want to output a string, I need to put it within double quotes. So let's do hello world. So I have beginning double quotes and closing double quotes. I'll click done. Oops, I used a single quote instead of a double. Now, when I click OK, notice that when I'm looking at the flowchart, the symbol looks a little different than it did before because it has this like put command in front of it. So I can't really just look at the symbols in the flowchart. I do need to double click on them to see exactly what's going on. But now this flowchart is ready. I can run it. I'm going to put my slider bar about medium speed, and I'm going to push the play button. Now, when I push play, if you saw it, each of the flowcharting symbols is highlighted in green as it's being executed, and we can see what's going on. The master console shows us all of our output. So anything that was using the output symbol, the output shows up here in this master console. So let's try a couple of other things. Make hello world into 2 strings that are concatenated. How would you do that?
Be parentheses, but yeah, and then a plus,
Mm-hmm.
then parentheses at world.
Yep, try it. Try it. So we can do 2 strings concatenated together. Very good. I'll run it. Should see the same results. Now, when I'm running a Raptor flowchart, I can also slow down the speed so that I can really see what's going on. Because sometimes it can be really helpful if there's a problem with some sort of loop or something to set it up in Raptor. But if I slow my speed way down and run, you'll see each symbol turns green for a little bit longer so that you can see it executing. All right, so now I'd like to add a variable. I'm going to add a variable. So I'm going to use this assignment symbol at the very top. And I'm going to put it before my output. When I double click on this, I can give my variable a name. I'll call my variable message. And then I can set it to a certain value. I could use a calculation here or a string or anything that I want. So I'll make this say world with my exclamation point. And now I want to change my output to say hello plus my message variable. I should end up with the same thing, right? I'm just using a variable now to hold that word. So now if I run it, see my variable and then my output. Is it exactly the same? My console has jumped somewhere. There it is. Mine's not exactly the same. How about yours? Is it exactly the same?
Need a space.
I need a space. So where should I put that space? I could put it in either place. I can put it in my string here, or when I save the word world to message, I could have put it at the beginning, either one. Now, when I'm using Raptor, notice over here in this watch window, our variables will show up. So if I run this, here's my message variable over here in the watch window, and it shows me what it's set to. Perfect. Everybody got it? Let's save that. That's just a little sample flow chart. I'm going to save this as a new name because I'd already saved it as my commission flow chart. And I would like to just save this as Hello World, just as a sample of a really small flow chart. Now I want to open the other one again, which is going to look just like this one. So I'm going to do File, Open. And I want my Chapter 3 Commission flowchart. Now notice on this open window, the raptor icon, the kind of dinosaur. Raptor will automatically save your flowchart for you every few minutes, and it will save them as backup files. So if I didn't close out of Raptor correctly, which happens a lot, like you walk off from your computer, when you come and you try to find the file that you're going to submit, you might see a bunch of .rb like backup files. Just make sure you're always getting the one with the real Raptor icon, not those backup files. And I want this commission flowchart file, so I'm going to open it. Okay, let's do this with our blank flowchart. I want to start out declaring my variables. So I'm going to use an assignment statement. We have 3 variables, so I'll go ahead and put the assignment statement on our flowchart 3 times. The first one will be our sales amount. When we're working with Raptor, Raptor is not case sensitive. So I could have it all uppercase in one place, all lowercase someplace else, and it would be fine. It's just the letters that have to match. Now we decided our sales amount was going to be a float, so I'm going to put a decimal place in that initial value, and that will tell Raptor this is going to be a number with a decimal. And then I want my commission rate. And this one was the one that we wanted to use as an integer. So we'll start by setting it to 0. And then our last one is going to be our commission earned. And again, this will be a float, so we'll do 0.0. In order to make this a little bit more like the next one, I'm going to add one more variable. And we're going to make this be the salesperson's name. So that would be a string. So to start out with an empty string, I'm just going to use 2 double quotes. And that just indicates that this will be a string variable that doesn't have anything in its string right now, just an empty string. Okay. We won't actually use that name variable anywhere. I just wanted to show you how to do that because it'll pop up in that next one that you're going to do on your own. All right, this is our main method. And in our pseudocode, I really didn't have the variables declared in our main method. They were kind of outside of it. But Raptor doesn't really give us a place to have outside of the main method stuff. So we're just going to declare these variables in our main method. Now after that, we need our calls. So let's grab this call symbol. And the first module we were going to call is input mod. So I'm going to double click on that. And Raptor wants to know that module name. It's input mod. As soon as I click done, I'm going to be prompted, asked if I want to create a tab for this module. Say yes. And it takes me to this tab, which is like another little flow chart for our input module. I'm not ready to create it yet, so I'm going to go back to the main. Now the next module our main is going to call is our calc. So I'll put that in, and then I'll say, yes, I want it to create a tab. And then I'll come back to my main. Okay, you guys doing okay? I see helping going on. Good, good, good.
I just have a question. I wanted to make a comment next to names because you said that it was going to be blank, but
Oh, good idea.
how do I make a comment?
Let's do that. That's a great thought. So if we click on our name symbol and right click on it. You can choose comment. And then you can just put something like empty string not used or whatever you want. And it shows up like that, kind of like a little comic strip. Good thinking. Okay, so now we have our input mod and our calculation module. The only other one we need is our output. So I'm going to use our call again. And we're going to call our output mod. And yes, I want to create a tab. And then I'm going to go back to my main. Now we should be able to run this. So even though all of our modules are empty, that's okay. They just don't do anything. So let's run it, and we should be able to watch the execution as it goes. So we can see our variables get set up. Then we go to our input module, our calculations module, and then our output. So that's why Raptor can be kind of helpful, because we can see exactly what's going on there. So let's fix up our modules. Let's do our input module first. We could click on the symbol somewhere, but the for sure way is to just click on the tab up here to go to our input module. Now in our input module, for our pseudocode, we said that we're going to write out this message, please enter the sales amount, and then we're going to input the sales amount variable. With Raptor, we can do all of that with one symbol. And the symbol we can use is the input symbol. So we haven't used it yet. Let's try it. If you double click on your input symbol to open it, the top part is the prompt that'll display, and then the bottom part is the variable we want to use. Is it messing up?
Nope.
Sure, okay. So what do I want for my prompt? Well, I can type it again. You know, and I could almost just copy and paste it from my pseudocode, right? Let me get there. So I could, if I were going to do that, I would want to copy from double quote to double quote, right? Because I just would want that string part. And then I could paste that in my Raptor box of my prompt. Now, what variable did I want for my sales amount? Sales amount. And just like Notepad++ tries to prompt you for things that you've already typed before, so does Raptor. So you'll see down here, it kind of shows variable names and things that it recognizes. There's a way you can get it to automatically populate. I don't know, you double click on it or press enter or something. I don't know, I can never get it to work. So I always just type it. Pressing enter worked. Okay, so in my Raptor box, I've got the prompt and the variable that I want to be used to contain the data. So let's click done and let's run this thing. Start at my main, starts going through my main module, goes to my input module, and I should see the prompt asking me to enter my sales amount. We'll say it was 5,000. Now, before I click OK, notice your watch window over here. I've got all these variables. I'm hoping that when I click OK, my sales amount variable changes value, right? Because that's the variable I want to use to hold this data. So I should be able to see it change. And there it goes. So it worked. It went through my calculation and my empty output module. Okay, so coolness, we can get it all to work. So let's go back to our input module then. We need another input box. This time, I always forget that I can't open that thing before I move the window. This time we want it to say, what is the commission rate, and input our commission rate variable. So if I type that all again, I can. I just need to put my double quotes. What is the commission rate? I hope they can hear. We'll make this be commission rate.
We can hear you.
Okay, thanks. They give me this stuff, they just don't tell me how it works. It's trying to connect to my phone. Okay, so now we have two input boxes, one to get our sales amount and one to get our commission rate. So we could test it again, but we don't really need to. It'll work that same way. Let's go on to our calculations module, and then after we get it set up, we'll run a test again. So our calculations module, we know it's going to be really short. We just have this one calculation in for processing our data. So which symbol do you think we would use for something like this? We use our assignment because we're wanting to set a variable to something. And the variable we want to set is our commission earned. And what we want to set it to is our formula. So sales amount times commission rate divided by 100. Sorry, I can't zoom in on those Raptor boxes anymore. I can make the flow chart bigger, but not the boxes. So okay. Vision test.
Are these sessions, the Zoom sessions, recorded so we can go back and rewatch them?
Uh-huh. And the link should be in Discord. On our
Okay.
Discord channel, it's pinned to our
Okay.
Discord channel. So let me know if you can't find it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because sometimes I can't read the screen quite well. So
I know you're doing great, and sometimes I'm sure you can't hear me.
No, your voice has actually been quite perfect for this.
Oh,
But,
that's weird.
But yeah, it's just the typing and all the stuff that can't be zoomed in on is
Yeah.
difficult.
I'll put the video out there, and you're doing great, Jessica. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, let's try running it.
Okay.
I'm going to go to main. Now we should see everything go. Set up our variables. In our input module, first, what's our sales amount? We'll give 5,000. Now, what's our commission rate? How about 20%? That sounds good. Now, notice that we can see both of those in our watch window, and we can also see our commission earned once that calculation gets done. So we can use that window to debug and make sure that we're all good. Here's the link I was talking about. If you guys go to our Discord channel, if I can get to it without jumping around too much, and on our Discord channel up here where the pin is the pinned messages, our YouTube playlist for our Zoom sessions. Now, sometimes I don't get them out there the same day as our class because they take forever to process. First, Zoom has to process them and make them all a video, and then I have to upload them to YouTube. So they can take a little while. Okay, so we see everything working great. we're ready to do our output module. Now our output module also is really small because all we need is for it to write out that one message. So I'm going to use the output symbol. And the message I want to write out, again, I could copy and paste it out of our pseudocode. The commission earned is, and then our plus sign and our commission earned variable name. So as you guys are doing yours, remember that when I'm grading it, these are the kinds of things that I'll be looking for, like missing the space, things like that, because getting the flowchart done is really important. That's the points overall, right? Getting it done. But then getting the details is important too, because we don't want typos. We don't want data squished right up against other data. When I first started teaching, I have a wonderful son who is like the worst speller ever in the history of the world. He had first grade when they decided they weren't going to teach him how to sound out words. They were just going to teach him how to memorize them. And he has a hearing problem on top of that. So he is a terrible speller. And I mean, when he uses words, you can watch over him and you can say, that's still not right. That's still not words. And so he was really waiting for the content sensitive word spell check, where Word would know which you should use based on this sentence, because he needs that. So I always thought I shouldn't count off for spelling, because that's not super important in programming and in development, right? Because we can't all be perfect spellers. But what if my son were to create a website? Would he need to be really, really extra diligent and careful? Yes, he would. So yes, we had to count off for things like that, because all of those things are what people see when they're using your end product. So spelling errors, they don't bode well for the use of this software, do they? If the very first thing we pop up with is something that isn't spelled right, we start getting a bad impression. So those little picky things are what I have to use at first, until we get to a point where we're writing meaningful programs, and then we can be looking for other things. So don't think I'm being picky. Just remember, I'm trying to point out to you that those things will matter, and you'd rather me gripe at you than a whole bunch of angry users. Okay, so I'm running my flowchart. I'm checking everything. I'm going to put in my sales amount. Now, as I'm testing, I would want to test with a bunch of different scenarios, a bunch of different numbers, to make sure that I'm getting all of the different possibilities. We don't have a lot of different possibilities with our application, so we can make sure that our calculation is correct, and then make sure that our output looks good. So here our commission earned is 1,000. We could add a dollar sign. I'll go to my output module and open my message. And right before my closing double quote, I could put a dollar sign, and then at least it would have a dollar sign before that money amount. Now, because I made that small change, I need to test again. Sometimes it can seem unnecessary, but it's real easy to make a typo. Perfect. So now we have the dollar sign. So don't worry too much about formatting your output with Raptor. We're just trying to get our logic down, and that'll be good for us. So we need to get to where you guys are working on yours. In Canvas, the other thing that's showing up in Canvas for week 4 is our unit exam. So you guys are going to take this on your own. So before we start on our project, let's talk about this. So stop thinking for a second and think about what I'm saying so you don't have a bunch of questions, because otherwise you will. Your unit exam is one that you're going to do on your own because we're a hybrid class, so we're not going to do it in class. It's due Friday night, so you need to have it done sometime between now and Friday night. There is a practice exam. You should use the practice exam. You should use the practice exam a few times. In the computer field, we like certification exams. We like saying, oh, he's a certified C# programmer. Certification exams are really scary and they cost money. And so when you don't know what to expect, it's really stressful. So they sell practice exams. So people in the IT field, the CIS field, we're used to practice exams. If I'm not going to take a certification test unless you give me a practice exam, or I'm going to go buy it. So that's what this is here for, so that you can see what this exam is going to be like. Our unit exam test bank is completely from the Prelude to Programming textbook. They created all of the questions. The same exact test bank is used in the practice test as in the real test, so that you can see what the questions will be like and get an idea of what is needed for the exam. So that's a really good place to start preparing, is the practice exam. If you get to a section where you have no idea what they're talking about, that would be a good place to start studying. The other part of our exam is the hands-on part. This is going to be either a pseudocode file or a Raptor flowchart file, your choice. It will be one that is very similar to what we did today and the one that you guys are going to practice on. And again, that'll be due Friday night at midnight. So any questions about that? Got that all on your to-do list for before Friday night? Great. So today then, we're going to do this supermarket product price, and I'm going to change the bowling scores to not affect your grade. So it's not one that you need to worry about. So supermarket is just like the one we just did. Except there's a few more variables, a few more things for you to worry about. So the manager of the supermarket would like to be able to compute the unit price for products sold there. To do this, the program should input the name and price of an item per pound and its weight in pounds and ounces. Then it should determine and display the unit price, the price per ounce of that item, and the total cost of the amount purchased. You're going to need these 6 variables, and you're going to need these 2 formulas. Now, this second formula is, how do I say, people that are engineering minded, that are really math oriented, really hate this formula. I understand it's not a super good formula, but it works for our purpose. So just go ahead and use it and it'll come out okay in the end, I promise. Now, how this works, I want you working with your study group, but each of you are going to turn in your own pseudocode, your own Raptor flowchart. Study groups there to help each other, for support, make sure everybody's got it. Yesterday, I was super impressed with the class. I had a couple of people who were all done, and they were just waiting to make sure that their study group members didn't have any questions or anything. So that was awesome. That's a good way to do it. So you guys have the rest of the time. I know that you might run out of time, and we can stay here for a little while. I don't think that there will be anybody here coming right away, but I know some of you need to get. Just make plans with your study group to get it turned in, or however you want to finish it up. I think you should have enough time, but I don't want you to stress. Any questions before we get started? You got it. Now, some of you have people that are on the Zoom session. Do we? Or is everybody pretty well grouped up? I think we're in pretty good groups in here, so I will rearrange them if I need to. Jessica, do you have a group? You have your group on Discord?
Yes, I've got my group on Discord.
Okay, you guys yell if you need anything.
Okay.
I'm going to stop this Zoom session so I can get the upload started.
Okay, sounds
Okay,
great.
thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, what do you have for a year?